Today we're going to build a scored questionnaire application. What I mean by scored questionnaire is that it's nothing but a standard questionnaire application. But answers to each question has a specific score. These are multi-selection questions where we're going to assign certain weights or certain scores to each answer. So let's get started. As usual, we're going to build the application in Excel, and we're going to write our rules and weighting rules in Excel as well. So let's start with first question. Let's say that our goal in this questionnaire is to capture some health-specific information from the end user. So let's say the first question is, how often do you drink alcohol? All right, so this is our first question. Now let's assume that our answer is going to be a multi-selection answer. And let's say that answers, and I'm going to create my selections here. Call this alcohol. Let's say the selections are never, rarely, once a week, a few times a week, and every day. Let's do a correction here. All right. Week. Okay. So let's call these selections list alcohol. Okay. Now, depending on the answer to this question, let's assume that we're going to give a score 1 through 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, let's say that higher the better. So that means that if the answer is never, then we're going to give it a score of 5. So just to make it easier, I'm going to create a list box so that I tie the answers to my table. So do data validation list and select this and hit OK. So I want never to get a score of 5. Let's copy these. And then rarely to get a score of 4. Once a week, 3. A few times a week, 2. And every day is 1. So that's the lowest score. So, and then this is going to be our answer. Let's put never here just as a space holder. Now we're going to need to write a formula. So that formula will basically grab this information and then compare it to our options. There's a simple formula called switch in Excel that will work perfectly in this case. So I'm going to type switch, and this is my expression. Now value, comma, result. It's a very simple selection. Value, comma, result. Value, comma, result. Value, comma, result. Value, comma, result. So we have 5 values and 5 results. You see that never will give me the answer of score of 5. If I change it to rarely, now it's the answer is 4. So one thing I want to do, which you'll find out later why I'm going to do this, is I'm going to make sure these scores are absolute references at row 2. So just quickly changing them to absolute references, because later on when I added other questions, I don't want to need to rewrite the entire formula. I will simply copy it down. Okay, let's move on to our next question. Let's say The next question is, do you smoke? Now this is a yes no type of question. So let's say yes will get a score of 1 and no will get a score of 5. As you can see, it doesn't have to have 5 options. You can have fewer than 5 options. It depends on what you decide the score should be. And all I need to do is to copy down the formula. But since there will be an answer, yes, no answer, let's say yes will give me 1, no will give me 5. Perfect. It's working as expected. Now, we can also create a yes, no option list, yes and no, and call this list underscore yes, no. Okay, and you'll find out later, why we need this. All right, let's add another question, one final question. Let's say, how often do you exercise? And let's give the options here. Exercise table here. Never is one answer. Once a week is another. A few times a week and every day. And then let's call this list exercise. Okay. Now, as you see, this is 4 option answer. We have 5 scores. You just need to decide, which one is going to be which. So let's start with 5. We want to give those who work out every day a score of 5. Okay, so let's add a data validation list. Okay, and that's going to be every day. And then those who exercise a few times a week will get a score of 4. Those who exercise once a week will get a score of 3. And then I want to give score of 1 to those never exercise. So there will be no score of 2 in this case. Okay, let's put a header here, score. And again, I'm going to copy this formula down. And then when I put an answer here, let's say never. That's a score of 1. Every day is a score of 5. So that's exactly what I want. I can keep adding questions here, but just for the sake of this demo, I'm just going to leave it as 3. And then let's do a final calculation here. Let's take the average of these numbers. Let's assume that that's going to be our sort of decision point. Let's say that at the end of questionnaire, depending on the answer that are given, we're going to assume that if the average is larger than greater than 4, which we assume that the person filling out the questionnaire is fairly healthy, then we're going to make a decision. If not, there will be another decision. In fact, I can create a simple message here. Let's say if this is greater than 4, your application is pre-approved. Else, your application is declined. Again, you can create any kind of message that you like, as long as you can write a simple if statement here. Okay, so we have 3 questions. We have our answers. The one final thing that we need to do is to name range. Remember, with SpreadsheetWEB, you have to create name ranges for each input. We have 3 inputs here. Let's use a trick, and I'm going to create name ranges for cells B3, B4, and B5 using the cells in A3 to A4. There you go. So these are the name ranges. And I also want to create a message here. Okay, now all we need to do is hit save and start creating our web application or web-based questionnaire. For that, we'll switch to SpreadsheetWEB, log into our account, create a new application, select Designer as the application option. Simply drag and drop the file that we just created. Okay, hit next. Simply select the group, hit next. Okay, now we go to the application designer. Now in a matter of a few steps, we're going to create our user interface. Go to the user interface, drop a container. Now the first question, you have the option of selecting from different control types. Since these are multi-selection questions, it could be a drop-down or it could be a radio button. I prefer radio button questions because you can see all possible answers at the same time. Okay, the first question was, how often do you drink alcohol, right? How often do you drink alcohol? So what are the options? List alcohol. Then I would like to select it as a list box. Hit submit. So these are the options. Next question. Next question was, do you smoke? And the answers are coming from list yes, no. Again, I'm going to make this a display box. Hit submit. Last question. Last question is, how often do you exercise? The answers are coming from list exercise. And once again, I prefer list box. Okay, so these are our questions, and this is the questionnaire. I can do a quick preview. And see how the application will look and feel like. This is how the application will look. As you can see, you can answer the questions and continue to the next page. So let's create another page where the user enters the answers, and then the next page will display the result. And in this case, that's going to be our message that we dynamically create. So let's close this and let's go to the page and then add a new page. I'm going to call this page message, page type standard, no navigation, create a page. Okay, and let's go to the user interface. And select the message page, and we're going to put the message here. We can do a number of things for a message. I'm going to create a content control. I'm going to put a section first and then place the content inside the section. If we go there, click edit, simply put double curly brackets, and all name ranges are available. and I want to select message. Also, I would like to make it a header 1, and let's also center it. Perfect. Okay, and submit. Okay, that's our message. Now, one additional thing I would like to add to the application, which is ability to move from one page to the other. So that means that we're going to put a next button on the first page. So let's go back to the home page and add a button, and that button is next, and it will take us to the message page. Hit submit. Let's do a quick preview. Now let's say, okay, we exercise every day. You smoke? No. I'm sorry. First question is alcohol. Let's select never. Do you smoke? No. And how often do you exercise? Every day. So that should give us a high score. Hit next. Your application is pre-approved as expected. So that's a high score questions. All we need to do now is to publish. And our survey, our questionnaire application is ready. I didn't enable a database, by the way. It's also very simple to add database and capture all of the information from the users, but we've already talked about database creation in several other videos previously, so I'll skip that part. So let's go to the questionnaire, and let's say a few times a week, yes, and a few times a week. Hit next. You can see your application is declined. And I didn't specifically put a back button so that people can go back and forth until they get a favorable result. Thank you for watching.